Welcome to Created Healthy. I'm Dawn Combs. It's a common idea that God gave us everything we need in nature, but do we believe it enough to walk that out in truth? Often the very same people who say this go looking for answers on how to use food and medicine from man-made sources. Everything man creates comes with a user's manual. Why would God be any different? I challenge you to join me in seeking revelation about our body, mind, soul, and spirit health by digging into His written word and in practicing pure science in the visible world of His creation. Because every house has to have a foundation, it was laid strongly on my heart to start this podcast with a daily series. I am using the book, The Bible in 52 Weeks, which you can buy for men or for women. I invite you to read along with me. We're going to start pretty appropriately at the beginning, literally the very beginning. Today's reading is Genesis 1 through 4. Just about anybody that you talk to knows the gist of these chapters. We start with literally nothing. We move through where God is creating the earth and everything that grows on it and everything that walks on it. We move through the creation of man and woman, and we get introduced to their partnership together. Moving into the temptation and the fall of man and the banishment from the garden. And finally, the last chapter wraps up with the tragedy that happens between Cain and Abel. I think I could probably do a whole season on these 4 chapters. There is just so much here. But I'm going to wrestle myself into submission and just talk about one of the most important parts that jumped out to me. Genesis 3:17 through 19 is where God pronounces the curse upon Adam and Eve. There is so much to unpack here again, but I think it's important to note that God gave very clear instructions on Adam and Eve's eating habits. Isn't that interesting? Now, I'm reading the Bible through with a perspective of trying to understand God's design for our health. And so I pick out these sorts of moments where most people see this story just as a parable about disobeying orders or going our own way or going against God's will. But in the nuance here, God actually told Adam and Eve all the things that they could eat to give them life. And He points out the one thing that they could not eat without causing their death. So it's a loving warning. And, of course, we all know it was disregarded in place of human judgment and temptation, and thus it is a learning point for us to understand what happens when we aren't walking inside of God's will. There are side effects, there's a downside, there are repercussions. But that's not what I want to focus on. Instead, I want to take a look at dirt. We are told that earth, or dry land, was created on the 3rd day. That is in Genesis 1:10 through 12. And that God saw that it was good. On that day as well, He gave the earth, and let's think of that as soil. This is dirt He's talking about. He isn't naming our planet. He's talking about dry land, soil. He gave this soil the ability to give birth to vegetation that yields seed and fruit trees that bear fruit with seed in them. So not only did He make the soil of earth, but He immediately gave it the ability to co-create, and further, specifically, to co-create plants that are themselves fertile and able to self-sustain, or rather to continue reproducing themselves on and on. It doesn't say, now God made plants and trees. It says that He gave the soil the ability to give rise to these things. This is a co-creation. This is a really, really heavy moment that I think we miss because we have been so conditioned to see soil as this inanimate container in which we plop our garden vegetables or our plants. Soil was a special element in this creation, and it was given the ability to co-create, to give rise to everything that the planet was going to need to function, and for the animals to be able to eat and the humans to be able to eat. The whole cycle goes round and round on the backs of the plants, and those were born of the soil. So let's go on to Genesis 3:17 through 19, and I want to read this. Cursed is the ground because of you. In toil you will eat of it all the days of your life. Both thorns and thistles it shall grow for you, and you will eat the plants of the field. By the sweat of your face you will eat bread till you return to the ground, because from it you were taken. For you are dust, and to dust you shall return. Cursed is the ground because of you. In Genesis 2:7, it says that God formed man of dust from the ground and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and man became a living being. So in this curse, I think I always heard it that God was cursing. Now the ground is cursed. This is where we have this hatred of weeds that has risen up, because now the ground is cursed and it's going to have thistles and it's going to have weeds and it's going to be difficult. But I think we need to look at the wording here. Cursed is the ground because of you. God didn't curse the ground for us to suffer. Man cursed the ground because we decided to follow our own way instead of his. Because we are made of the ground and we will return to the ground. Our willfulness contaminated the soil in the same way we were contaminated. Here in Genesis, we are very clearly told right off the bat that there is an inescapable connection between us and the soil of the earth. As we treat it, so will we experience consequences in our body. We can see this as true today. Conventional farming, and even some organic farming that is not concerned with building the soil, is pulling nutrients out and adding in chemical toxins. This is where our food grows. Our food takes in what is in the soil because that's the design. We are the soil. We were made from the soil. We will return to the soil. And right now, a lot of our farming culture is set up to disrespect the soil. It is an afterthought. We can bring in some sort of other chemical agent or man-made compound just to get the plants to grow, and it is literally usurping the design. When we bring something else in instead of focusing on the health of the soil so that we can have fertility, we're bypassing the design that was originally put here. The soil is intended to be fertile. It is intended to co-create with God and produce living plants. And that is as about foundational as you can get. I think it's something to ponder on and to look around in the way that we are treating the earth. Not in a hooty-wuddy way, but the earth, the soil underneath our feet. It has much more value than we've been given. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and share with a friend. And I'm always interested in hearing what God is laying on your heart. So drop me a rating or review, or join the conversation on Facebook, Instagram, or YouTube at Dawn Combs Really.